Hi creatives, I'm so excited because today we're going to redesign one of my absolutely first logos that I created for a travel company called Oranger. You might remember this episode where I shared my earliest portfolio, and we had this one logo called Oranger and it was really difficult to use. Basically, we had lots of different colors going on, flat design which was very trendy at the moment, and just a lot of visibility and legibility issues. I also think there was a lot of issues with the kerning, and we only had the logo, not a full visual language. So today I want to redesign this logo and also expand it to a full brand identity. The first thing I want to do is to do a little bit of research on the travel industry, because as you know, research is super important because we really want to make sure that the brand we're creating is not just beautiful, but it's also going to fit really well with the audience that we're trying to speak to. Oranger is a sustainable travel company that do eco tours, and so I want to make sure that I reflect wilderness and eco and all of these different aspects that are really important. But I want to really get to understand what the customers care about when they book a trip. The first thing I'm going to do is have a look at competitors. So let's start to find some other eco-friendly travel agencies. The first thing I look for is just the type of messaging that they're using, the type of photography, and anything that could give me a hint about what their customers might be interested in. In this case, it's really interesting to see the testimonials here, and I'm looking for how they're using sustainability. And we can see that some of them use it straight out by just talking about it, and some of them use it more through photography and the images that feel more interesting, inclusive, more open to the people who actually live there. And so we really want to see how that's utilized from other brands. Testimonials are such a good place because you can start to see trends. And here we're looking for things like we can notice that the customer service is a really big sticking point. Amazing. So now I want to start creating mood boards. And I turn to places like Behance, Pinterest, design books, or even just like travel companies and things out in the wild. So try to think about different things that both fit into the actual industry, so other travel companies, but also other things that you think might be interesting, like maybe books about nature, or maybe something that is unrelated but still feels interesting to the same audience. We want to pull from as many different sources as we can so that we don't end up replicating just other travel agencies. We want to create something that feels like it's in the right niche, but still unique to the brand. I'm really interested in this idea of stamps and having ideas of travel and all of these little things you can put in your passport, so badges and things. And there's so many interesting details. I also think that there's a really great way to make it kind of retro styled. And I also really like having maybe a serif typeface because that's something I'm not always working with. And I think it could look really beautiful and together with a kind of modern and mixed with a little bit more of a traditional aesthetic. I'm also really interested in something that feels a bit more tropical and interesting, and so I'm adding all of these ideas to Milanote as I'm going, and then we're going to see the mood board come together. So here we actually have the mood boards. I always create multiple ones. Sometimes I show all of them to my clients, sometimes I only show them one, but I really want to get an idea of the different trends here. The first one on the left is really inspired by Wes Anderson, travel, all these little knickknacks and trinkets that you have as you travel, and everything that makes your travel special and memorable. And then on the right is a lot more about the actual locations, maybe beautiful tropical spaces, something that feels like it has to do with sustainability and eco travel. And I think I definitely prefer the left-hand one, so I'm going to go with that more pastel-y one. I actually really love this function where you can add color swatches straight in Milanote because it really helps me when I'm starting to design. This is why you want to have different images so that you're not pulling all of your colors from one image or one brand. Okay, so it's time to start working on the logo design. The first thing I do is to start just sketching out different things in terms of both the name of the company, but also ideas. So because we had a parrot last time, I do want to explore an icon of a parrot, but I also want to see different things related to travel. I like to work on my iPad, but you could also sketch on pen and paper and whatever you're most comfortable with. I prefer working with sketches first rather than jumping straight into Adobe Illustrator because I tend to be a little bit more free and I feel like I can try out different ideas and not get stuck in making it too perfect right in Illustrator. Now that I'm starting to sketch, I was talking about this idea of the parrot, but I feel like that might be a little bit too difficult. They have a lot of detail to make it look good. So I like the idea of maybe using a feather instead, but I felt like that was also quite detailed. So I started to experiment with more like word mark or something more ornate as an idea. Also the idea of travel, maybe these different fans that you have that could be really pretty with different patterns. I tried using something that was a little bit more reminiscent of kind of these navigations, or adding the little "the" as a way to have more of a nod to those Wes Anderson movies. But I really got this idea of the stamp stuck in my head, and I wanted to see if there was a way for us to use that as a dynamic part of the brand, where the stamp could actually change depending on the location that you're traveling to. So I'm just seeing how to add enough detail without it becoming messy. And then I move into Adobe Illustrator. So here I'm trying to refine the idea, figure out maybe if it should be in a different orientation. I felt like it was really solid and it felt quite undistinct as a mark. So I wanted to go and look for some fonts before I actually finished the icon itself, just to see how they're going to work together. I quite like these old-timey ones, but they felt a little bit too detailed with the texture. So I really like fonts like this one, like Mindstay, where it actually has a little bit more of that old-timey feel, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I tried a couple of different ones and I wanted to try them in both all caps and lowercase, but I really like the all caps version, and I'm gonna start to combine the mark now with the icon. One idea that I had to make it feel a bit less blocky was to create it as an outline version. And I think that this might work really well because the word mark is actually quite delicate. I think this is going to work a lot better. And I'm loving this lockup. Having ways to start to add your different elements together always makes it feel like it's come to life. I also started to feel like it was really difficult to see those delicate serifs. So I started to actually make them a little bit less prominent in the thin areas using the eraser tool. This is just so the mark will not become distorted when it's at a smaller scale. I really like this version of the logo, so I think we're gonna go with this one. Now that we have the logo, I want to start expanding it into the colors, fonts, and other visual elements like illustrations. Now I'm going to start putting in the colors, and I'm just grabbing the colors from my mood board, and then sometimes I might tweak them a little bit as I'm seeing them in use. But in this case, I quite love how they work together, and I think that the yellow is adding a little bit more of a modern twist to it, something that feels a little bit more energetic. I also now want to see how that works with the logo, so I'm going to place the logo in white on top of the darker color and just make sure that that is going to be visible, it's going to work well, there's no space that needs to be adjusted. And in my case here, I think that this actually looks pretty good. We're going to check with the little stamp as well, but I think that looks quite pretty. And then I want to do the same thing, but with the colors inverted. So I'll do the light background and I'll do the dark color as the actual logo. I think that works really well, so we're going to keep going with this one. I think it's really important for this brand to be quite dynamic, so it has different things to pull from depending on the type of trip. Like if you're going to go to Antarctica, it's going to be quite different from if you're going to the Amazon. So how can they use different colors and different variations of patterns and things to feel like it's appropriate for the actual trip that they're going to promote? I wanted to share my illustration process for the different stamps here because I tried a lot of different layouts and a lot of different versions. For this first one, I wanted to illustrate like for an Amsterdam floral trip, and I wanted it to feel a little bit kind of abstract and modern, but still have those beautiful colors from that older brand. But as you see, I tried a lot of different types of flowers and layouts before I was happy. I also wanted to have this little circle that we could place somewhere to kind of bring home this idea of the stamp, and using it as a background color as well, so that we can have it as a detail if we want to create patterns or little visual elements that are really flexible. Now I'm getting some photography so that we can start putting everything together, because I feel like when photography enters the space, that's when we always start to see the brand come alive. And I want to have something that feels incredibly clean, but still has enough information to be super helpful for the brand and super flexible. This is also a great time to experiment and make sure that the layouts that you're creating are going to be practical, because you want to make sure that the mark that you've created is going to be visible, it's going to be recognizable, and it's going to be something that is not too detailed where you can't see it at small scales. We also want to think about messaging. So whenever we're presenting anything to a client, we want to make sure that it is something that will resonate with our audience. So working with either a copywriter or working on this yourself and really trying to think about how the messaging is going to tie together with the visuals of the brand is super important. This is what the final Orange brand looks like, and I'm so excited to actually see the difference between what I created 8 years ago and what I've created now. I think it's really interesting to see how my idea about graphic design has changed and branding, and I would love to hear your comments of how you would have interpreted the brief. If you want to create your own version and you want to share it with me on Instagram so we can all see it together, I'd love to post them to my stories as well. You can use the hashtag #RedesignChallenge. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos where I create a brand from scratch, I'm going to put the playlist here on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your projects and see you next time.